Hi, I'm Denny Williams, Bethany, class of 1981, and you're watching Dingo Talk.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. My guest this week, Denny Williams, class of 1981. Denny's going to tell us everything from winning a PAC title in 1980 with the football team under Coach Don Alt, a lot of things about his experiences and life of what Don Alt taught him, and where Denny is now. But without further ado, it's not my job to tell Denny's story. That's his job. So, Denny Williams.
You wanna know by now. You wanna know by now. You wanna know by now. You wanna know. You wanna.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. My guest this week, Denny Williams, class of 1981. Denny's going to tell us everything about how he got to Bethany, why he came to Bethany, some exciting things that happened while he was at Bethany, PAC champion in 1980. And everything. We'll take a break, come back, everything since comps that connect all of us all the way through to the end of the episode. Denny, thank you for being with us.
Great to be here, Carlo.
Let's find out. So how did you get to Bethany, West Virginia?
Well, it wasn't a long journey for me, Carlo. I'm a local Brooke County boy. Went to Brooke High School, been in Brooke County most of my life, and was really a late decision to actually come to Bethany. So much of my life at that point in time was football. And I had been involved with a fairly successful program at Brooke High School, and had a couple good years while I was there, and was recruited by some of the D1 schools, notably WVU. And I really thought I was on a path to go to West Virginia. I actually sat in Bobby Bowden's office my junior year for a unofficial recruiting visit, and it was like, Denny, we can't wait to get you down here. Well, the next year, Bobby leaves and goes to Florida State, and the new guy comes in, and he wasn't quite as excited about me as Bobby. And so I went through my senior year, got some nice accolades, but West Virginia really just kind of strung me along. And at some point they said, look, we'd like you to be a walk-on. But I really didn't get that feeling that they really wanted me.
Okay.
It was just going to be kind of, hey, come on down, let's see if you work out. And I wasn't sure I really wanted to go that route. And at that time, I had a couple small schools, Fairmont State, a West Liberty, a Bethany, a couple other regional schools. And one day, Coach Alt came to Brooke High School, and he said, Denny, why don't you just come to Bethany? And Don was one of those people that I like to say he was one of the best recruiters for the school, not just for the football team, but for anybody. I think he probably got more people into Bethany than just about anybody. Not all of them stayed, maybe. Not all of them finished their football career. But Don had a way of convincing you that he wanted you, and he convinced me. So the great news is it worked out.
And what was that ability that he had? What was that he made you feel like when he was talking to you, you were the most important person in the room at the time, or what was it about him that got you?
Exactly. Sold? Yeah, exactly. He had a way of, he was a pretty a smooth guy, I'll say, and he's good in person, and he just made you feel like, the best thing in the world for you is to come to Bethany. And Don, I can remember, I'll tell you this story. We got there as freshmen, and we had our first game was a away game. So you were trying to wait and see if you had made the travel team. And of course, not everybody got to go. A lot of freshmen didn't get to go. And they put your name up on the board as you walk out to practice if you're on the travel team. Well, my name was on, I went out, but there was a number of guys that didn't make the travel team. So after practice, he called them all over, and he said, guys, I'm really disappointed we can't take everybody. He says, you guys are probably disappointed. He goes, some of you probably don't even think I know your name. And he goes, well, I don't. So a lot of guys kind of got their key to the length of their football career at Bethany kind of from those kind of meetings. But Don, once you were on his team, so to speak, he was probably nobody better to play for anywhere.
So what was Bethany like when you got here?
I can't speak to, a lot of times prior to me and a lot of times past, but I kind of get the feeling it was like the heyday of Bethany. There's probably some great experiences before and since, but my time there I think was as good as any. The school probably at that time, Carlo, had pushing 1,000 students. So campus was busy. There was a lot going on. The Greek life there at that time was very, very much the way most students went. I want to say 80% of the school went Greek, back in those days. And it was just a really neat place, even though it was a small school. You kind of got to a point where it was like your town, and it was just one of those things that, I guess compared to today, the young people and the students don't relate to it as much just because it's so different.
So academically, are there any professors that stand out in your mind, and what was your major when you came to Bethany?
Well, I was a political science major, also had a minor in history, and I ended up coming back to Bethany as a graduate assistant the year after I graduated and got an education degree. So I ended up kind of looking at a couple different things when I first came in. I actually looked at journalism for a while, mass communications. Finally kind of had this thought in my head, I might want to go to law school. Mm-hmm. A number of my roommates was on that track, and a number of them are attorneys today, but I kind of figured out, I don't know if that's the direction I want to go. Kind of late at Bethany, but it got me on a track to get an education degree and maybe get into teaching and coaching. Some of the professors at the time in the department, Dr. Bill Young, was very instrumental in kind of leading me in that direction. Mm-hmm. Della Sheldon was the department chair at the time. There was a number of other great professors that I was exposed to in other specialties. Dr. Kenny was faculty advisor at the Beta House. I pledged Beta my freshman year, and Dr. Kenny was, just super person to be around and kind of guide and direct us in the ways we needed to go when maybe he thought we weren't going in that good direction. So
you bring up that you rushed Beta, and you are a Beta. So why was Beta where you felt at home for Greek wise?
Right. Well, there was a number of guys in the circle that I was running with as freshmen. We were all together in Moreland Hall. That's where the freshman men lived back then. And a number of guys played football. There was a number of upperclassmen Betas who were football players. I almost played Sigma Nu. There was a number of football players that were Sigma Nus. We had some other, guys on the team, Alpha Sigs. We had a number of independents. But it was kind of that football connection with those people. And probably what swayed it was most of the guys that were in my circle, the freshman guys, that I figured I'm going to spend the next 3.5 years with these people that are kind of my closest friends. And they were going Beta, so I did.
So rush for those, because as we're recording this, it's bid day for the college, and they do that in the fall now. When I was here, it was a springtime rush, was formal rush. Was it formal rush in the fall, or did you wait, have the semester to get your bearings and then into it you went as a second semester freshman?
No, rush happened your freshman fall semester.
Okay. So
all of the social events, all the rush events around campus was going on pretty much as soon as you got there. And then bid day was second semester in the spring, right after you got back to school.
So let's talk about, you've touched on the football thing a couple of times. And it's a pretty successful group that you were a part of. Let's talk about the 1980 team.
Sure.
For those who don't know, that's the year that Bethany won its PAC title in football. I believe the game was against W&J, and it was a last-second victory. There was a picture that used to hang in the bar of I think it was a pass to a tight end, and down the sideline he went. Walk us through the championship game, and actually let's go, how did we get to that point?
Yeah, kind of build it up. My first 2 years at Bethany, in terms of wins and losses, we kind of struggled. We'd only won 2 games my freshman year and 2 my sophomore year. But about the second game our sophomore year, coach made a player change at quarterback, went with Jeff Beer, who was a sophomore. Jeff, kind of a raw talent, had a super strong arm. And we were kind of a 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense up to that time. And we really just had trouble scoring. We always had good defense and they kept us in the game, but we typically struggled to put points on the board. And Coach Alt came out about that third practice, our sophomore year. He kind of tore up the playbook. He put us out there, 4 wide receivers, a fullback, and a quarterback, and we did 7-on-7 drills at practice that night. And he put in a brand new offense in about a day and a half. And the next week we went out and we scored like crazy, and we actually won.
Which is abnormal. That offensive formation for 1980 is not something that teams, especially I'm guessing in the conference, that's not something they were used to seeing.
That's correct, Carlo, and not even in the conference, really in all of football. The only team I remember at the time who was doing anything close to that at the D1 level was Houston, University of Houston.
Okay.
And they would spread the field and throw the ball around like that. And I think what Don realized was, he had a guy that could throw it. He had a good offensive line that could pass protect. And he had about 4 or 5 guys who he could count on that could catch the football. And I give Don credit. He was always this kind of Woody Hayes, we're gonna run it down your throat. He used to say, I only want you to run 3 yards and fall down. And then he'd say, do that 4 times and we got a first down, so we'd all be laughing, and Don kind of came away from that. And I think he looked at his team and said, this is the way to go. And our junior year, we had a great senior leadership core of guys, and we just kind of turned the corner, and we went 6-2 that year. We only played 8 games. We were always pressing the administration to get us, 9 games, 10 games. But those guys that were our captains, Doug Owens, Rick Villani, John Trishler, and Jeff Severino, those guys kind of brought us all together. They made an effort that it didn't matter what fraternity you were in. Before you were in a fraternity, you were in Coach Alt's fraternity. And it really built a solid team atmosphere in the locker room. And I think that class deserves a lot of, turning us into somebody who expected to win. And so when we went into that next year, we went undefeated regular season, went 9-0. And we really did walk on the field expecting to win. And Coach Alt kind of changed that culture from somebody who wasn't sure I'm going to win to I expect to win.
So walk us through the game that seals it.
Well, the game you're talking about, Carlo, it was the big last second touchdown pass where you see the picture in Bubba's, was actually Carnegie Mellon. They were the best elite team in the conference at the time. They'd been to a couple national playoff games. I think they actually made it to the semifinals one year. At that time, we were undefeated. They were undefeated. It didn't seal the conference championship, but it was like, you got to win this one if you are. And it was a slugfest. I want to say there was 6,000 to 7,000 people at Bethany for that game. There was standing room only, and it was a great, almost a defensive battle, believe it or not. They were throwing all kind of defenses. I was getting triple teamed most of the game. They had a guy who practiced all week long with my number 86, and they said, beat the heck out of this guy so he can't catch anything. And we got late in the game, and it was like 4th and 17, and Dale Grosso, who was our other wide receiver, one of our other wide receivers, Dale on 4th down, I think we were on our own 20-yard line. 4th down, Jeff throws him a pass. He catches it, gets a first down, makes maybe the better catch of the day to get that first down. And at that point, there might be 12 seconds to go in the game on our own 45. And we did the old Hail Mary, and Deo Grosso again came down with it in the right corner of the end zone, and it was a shocker. The neat story is there was a guy who was the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates back in the day. They called him the Gunner, and he was also the voice of CMU football.
Okay.
It was Bob Prince. And so Bob Prince did all these Pirate games. We grew up watching the Pirates, and Bob Prince comes down, and at the end of the game, after we lost the lead and there was only, hardly any time left, he had to get up to Pittsburgh for an engagement, and he signed off and actually kind of just left it as CMU wins.
But the game's not over. He's out.
The game's not over. Yeah, the game's not over. And then, of course, Dale makes the catch, we win, and the team goes back to Pittsburgh, gets off the bus, and there's actually people at Carnegie Mellon cheering them as they get off the bus that they had won the game. There's no cell phones back then, there's no email, and they said, "Oh, folks, no, we lost." So it was a huge thing to beat those guys. They beat us every year until that year, and then we just ran the table the rest of the year and went undefeated. And I think we clinched the PAC championship with a victory against W&J at W&J.
And that was still just for tradition's sake. Was that still the old put them in the wheel, whoever wins, the other coach, the wheelbarrow game, right? They put Coach Alt in the wheelbarrow and they took him across the field. And
yes, except that game, there was a fight. We got in a fight with the W&J guys on their sideline, and they wouldn't let us do that. They kept us separated. So it was kind of, we kind of didn't get to do that, or at least like we did in the old days.
Well, so that looks like it's a good point for us to take a pause. We're going to take a minute, send it to Harry Chambers and Chambers General Store, because if Chambers doesn't have it, you don't need it. If you've been to Bethany and you didn't go to Chambers, I don't know how you did it. You have to explain your mysterious driving skills, because you had to have driven past it. But make sure if you are in town, you stop and get a breakfast sandwich, daily lunch specials. As we get into November, there's going to be a soup of the day. He's got biscuits and gravy now. And as the statement earlier said, if he doesn't have it, you really don't need it, because Chambers has everything you can think of. This is Denny Williams, class of 1981. I'm Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour, and we'll be right back.
While you're in Bethany, make sure you stop in the store for a daily lunch special, breakfast sandwiches all day. Try out the biscuits and gravy, guaranteed it'll fill you up. And also look for our new burnt orange Chambers, if we don't have it, you don't need it t-shirts, and our psychedelic green 3rd edition Bethany Mushroom Capital of the World t-shirts. Now back to you, Dingo.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. My guest, Denny Williams, class of 1981. Denny left off. We had just finished talking about that 1980 season, the PAC championship game. Now we're going to talk about the thing that connects us all as an alumni. Comps. Were you a fall or winter or spring comper?
I was a winnow comper, Carlo. Decided that that was the best way to go for me. Had all of my requirements done, so I decided to do the comps in the winter term, and then save my senior project for the spring term.
So studying wise, you obviously had a very exciting fall. Study wise, when did you start to study for your winter comps, and what were some of your studying tactics?
Well, at that point in time, we had a January term, right? And so you had the whole month of January off. And what a number of us did who, we were kind of the same major. And then there was a number of guys who were maybe a different major, maybe the economics business people, maybe the English people, whatever your specialty was, they would all get together and kind of do a group study. We typically, we lived there at the Beta House. We'd study in the morning, kind of independently on our own. We'd get something to eat for lunch, and then in the afternoon, we'd get together and kind of grill each other, kind of have a back and forth, question and answer time where we try to prepare each other, for both the written piece of it. And then, we were thinking, oh gosh, how are we going to get through orals? How intimidating is that going to be? So we tried to kind of prepare ourselves as best we could to, to deal with that in that environment.
Was there a point where, and I've asked a couple alumni this, and we all have our different ways. I remember a point where Saturday, 2 days before you go into your writtens, and I was studying halfway through the day, and I looked at a bunch of stuff, and it was stuff that I knew for the communications degree, but it wasn't coming to me. And I basically got up and said, well, if I don't know it, then I don't know it. And out the door I went, and the rest of, would that be advice that you would give to people that are studying, is don't study, but don't overstudy?
Yeah. I'd say going into it, I think most of us looked at it in a way that it was maybe a bigger deal than what it really was. If you were the kind of student that, had any kind of, sincerity about why you're at college and performed as a student or student athlete in any way, you would do okay. Most of the people that went before me, counseled me, say, hey, look, take good notes, keep your notes. You need to have a general understanding across your specialty about, what it is you've learned here. And if you can do that, you're going to pass your comps. Now, the difference comes in where, if you want to pass with distinction, well, then, that's a different story. I didn't have that problem.
I did not either. Pass was the key phrase.
Yeah, my writtens went okay. I think I did really, well enough to do on my writtens that I was going to pass. But there was probably not a lot I could do in the orals that would get me distinction. So I ended up going into my orals, kind of thinking to myself, oh boy, what's this going to be like? And then when I got in there, I got some questions that, hey, I can answer that. And it did cause me to go back, maybe to something I had when I was a sophomore or a junior, and be able to, kind of express and communicate what that was and how I retained it. So for me, maybe it wasn't quite as intimidating. Once I got in there, I kind of got the feeling that, hey, I got this, but distinction is not in my future,
So when you finished comps, were you already after the change, or did you have to wait for the letter from the registrar that said you officially passed? Because I'm not sure when that change took place. I know Gary Capel and Ken Morgan both talked about how there was no celebration after you walked out of orals. They had to wait for the registrar to send them an official letter. Is that how it was?
No, we found out right away. So once we walked out, there was a period of time where I guess they all kind of talked it over. Then we found out, pretty much right after our orals that we passed or failed. So yeah, it was usually there was some friends and folks there waiting for you with a libation to celebrate. So.
So you brought up in the first part how when you graduated, you actually came back and did a graduate assistant. So you were working towards your master's here at Bethany?
Actually, it was an education degree, not a master's of education.
Okay.
I actually did my student teaching in the fall of 1981 at Wheeling Park High School. And then, was preparing myself. Hey, I think I'm going to go into an education career. I never kind of quite got there due to the availability of, my specialty was not where really in a local environment. I kind of wanted to stay local around that time. And I was going to have to, go away, maybe into a big urban center that, was going to be my first job. And I really didn't want to do that. So I ended up helping my father coach high school football and substitute taught for a year. And then I ended up taking a job at a local business in Wellsburg. And that's kind of what started my career in business. there's a manufacturing plant there right on Commerce Avenue. I believe it's called Mondi now, but it's a multi-wall bag plant. At that time, it was owned by Westvaco Corporation. And Westvaco came to Bethany one day and was interviewing for a couple management positions there as kind of like a shift supervisor.
Mhm.
And after I graduated, my mother actually got a job there at Bethany. She was one of the administrative secretaries for John Cunningham. And my mother called me up one day and said, "Hey, I just signed you up for an interview at Westvaco." And I said, "What are you doing, Mom? I'm not going to go that path. I got another path I'm on." And she convinced me that it was the right thing to do to practice interviewing. Okay. And so she talked me into it, and I did it. And I walked out of there thinking, you know what, these people are going to offer me a job. And the management team there specifically wanted a Bethany grad or a couple Bethany grads. They became impressed with the academics, you know, the curriculum. I think they're well-rounded person that comes out of Bethany, and fortunate for me, they decided, hey, we're going to hire Williams. And I started my career in business as a shift foreman at that little bag plant in Wellsburg.
And where did that career take you? Because you've done quite well for yourself.
Yeah, I ended up working for that company for about 12 years in various sales management, and management positions. You know, in the corporate world after that, there was a lot of consolidation in our industry. Worked for a large paper company and a packaging segment for that paper company. So I went through a number of mergers. The companies got bigger and bigger, and I had some good opportunities in those, you know, companies down the road. And I was able to, you know, kind of capitalize on some experience I got through that upbringing at that little bag plant. And obviously Bethany helped me tremendously in how I interacted with people, how I was going to have to motivate people to do their jobs in a safe way, in a productive way. I never thought it was going to be, you know, the multi-wall bag business and then eventually the corrugated box business is how I would make my living. But it's been a big blessing to me, and I really wouldn't do it differently.
Well, and so this year you were part of a big announcement. There's new turf on the field, and that new turf came with there's a price tag that comes with that. Your video went out a couple weeks ago. It's probably a couple months ago now. That the betas and a lot of your friends were going to match donations more or less for the upkeep. Obviously a part of the installation. But there's also big news for that 1980 football team that we have talked about. A man who is now going to have his name on the field, and rightfully so. It's going to be called Donald Field. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, be glad to, Carlo. Yes, the school needed to replace, you know, that turf that had been there a while and is really kind of starting to almost become unsafe. Mm-hmm. For some of the student athletes who are going to have to play on it. So you know, it's $500,000 to do this, and the school really wanted to, you know, kind of make it happen. And you know, the betas stepped up. You know, our side diamond development group, where you know, we help out the local fraternity, but we also, you know, contribute to the college. Said, hey, this is something we can do. We're going to put this out here. And another one of our beta brothers, Scott Brooks. Scott was a senior when I was a freshman. Mm-hmm. Scott even came up with his own big donation and matching. And I believe the company there locally was also helping the school with a donation. So, you know, we're kind of halfway there, I think, about where we want to be. So we're not done raising the funds yet, but I think to kind of motivate people that to give and maybe dig a little deeper, and also honor, you know, in my opinion, you know, one of the greatest coaches in Bethany history. They decided to go ahead with the naming for Coach Alt. You know, we've had some other great coaches there. You know, Bob Goyne, who we just lost this last year, was the guy who actually hired Don to come to Bethany. Mm-hmm. Kind of a neat story with that is before Don was at Bethany, he was a very successful high school coach in Bel Air, Ohio. Coached a guy named Mike Sherwood, who was a WVU quarterback. Mike was my freshman coach when I was at Bethany.
Wow.
But after Bel Air, Don was actually a coach at Marshall University. And, that tragic 1970 plane crash where, those young men and that whole team lost their lives, Don left the year before that. So if Don would have stayed one more year at Marshall, he most likely would have been on that airplane and would have never been at Bethany. I didn't learn that until after I left Bethany and Don was sharing some things with me. But Bob Goyne was the coach at Bethany at the time, coach and athletic director. Before Bob passed away a few years ago, he said, Denny was the smartest thing I ever did. He said, I needed to find somebody who could coach defense. And I never thought I could get Don to come here, but he did. So
that leads me into, and you've touched on a couple things. What would you tell your childhood self? Or let me rephrase that. Do you think your childhood self would be proud of where you are right now? Or would he kind of laugh and go, I'm not going to do that?
Hey, Carlo, for a young guy from Wellsburg, Fallensby, Brooke County, West Virginia, to be where I'm at today, I would have never dreamed that I've got to do some of the things I've got to do, go some of the places I've got to go, meet the people I've got to meet. When I was at Bethany, right after my career there, I ended up trying out with the Green Bay Packers, went to mini camp with the Green Bay Packers. So I got to experience, the NFL out of little old Bethany.
What was that experience like?
It was very, very much awestruck by going through that whole process, being on a field with the people you watched play on television the year before.
It's different.
Many of them pretty much men, and I'm still kind of like a kid. It was amazing. Bart Starr was the coach of the Packers at the time. My claim to fame is I got released when John Jefferson was acquired by Green Bay from the Chargers, and JJ was pretty good. So
he was all right. He was an okay guy. He's okay.
I don't feel too bad.
So you pointed out all the way from little old Bethany, you made it there. So you're in a Division III program. Why Division III? If you're talking to a senior in high school right now and they're going through a similar experience where a coach left the program that they thought they were going to, they don't feel as welcomed by the new coaching staff. What is it about Division III that is no different than the D1, D2, and the NAIA programs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carlo. There's a certain type of athlete who's a blue chip kid who's going to go Division I. He's going to be pretty much an NFL prospect the day he walks on a college campus. Mm-hmm. I was not that guy, right? That was my dream.
Yeah.
But I was not even in a position to convince West Virginia to kind of give me a scholarship and bring me on. So I'd encourage young people to evaluate, what's that talent and gift that you have. If you've got it, then man, go for it.
Yeah.
But if you maybe aren't that type of athlete, and you want to prepare for life, and you want to go someplace where you can be a student athlete, I think a school like Bethany and a D3 level is very much the way to go. When you're at a D1 program, even back in the day when I was playing, football was a big part of your life. As a matter of fact, it was your job, and it consumed you. Well, guess what? In 2021, it's like times 10. These kids are football, and oh yeah, we gotta study for a test. Okay, I really don't want to say they're not student athletes, but I just don't think it's the same as you're going to walk into a D3 school like Bethany, and you're going to get that education more importantly than are you going to play a sport, win a championship. It's kind of a great, balance to your life to say, look, it's time to prepare for something that's maybe not going to be my life's profession as an athlete. And I just think the quality of education you can get and to prepare you for going into another profession that you're probably more gifted at makes a lot of sense.
And you pointed out, Bethany is a Division III program. I'll tell you a funny story about this show. I've asked that question to many athletes throughout the 80 some episodes that we've done. The best answer that I've gotten is, well, why Division III? Because Bethany's a Division III school. So with that, why Bethany? If you're selling Bethany to a student right now, and again, the liberal arts colleges as a whole are kind of, they're all struggling to find those students, and a small school that's in the middle of nowhere, you have not very much. What is it about this place that really benefits a student from coming there?
Yeah, I think it's very much the entire experience of what Bethany gives us. The best way I can describe it, Carla, we're all shaped by something, right? We're shaped by things. Me personally, very much shaped by my family, very much shaped by my faith. I got to Bethany, I was very much shaped by Don Alton Bison football, but I was also very much shaped by the people and faculty and administrators that surrounded me at Bethany. The one thing that impressed me when I got to Bethany was the caliber of the people that went to school there. I have to give a lot of credit that wherever I'm at today, I'm kind of there because I was around a lot of people who wanted to be something and go somewhere. And I tell you what, that rubs off.
Yeah.
And it really kind of motivated me, to kind of do the same thing as best I could. And the other thing I think Bethany did is, being a guy from Brooke County, West Virginia, I knew a little bit about the world. When I got to Bethany, I learned a lot more about the world. I was very impressed by the connections Bethany had beyond Bethany. So I was able to see alumni who went and did this, who became this. My roommate at Bethany is our former chairman of the board of trustees, Greg Jordan. Greg and I are college roommates. Greg went on and did great things, building a big law firm. Today he's chief administrative officer at PNC Bank. There was a number of other guys who've gone on to great law careers, military careers. And I was fortunate to be in a group of people that wanted to take advantage of their time at Bethany and then go on and do some really neat things. And that rubs off. And a couple people there also, kind of befriended me, even though they were administrators, that kind of, you got to see what an adult life outside of college was actually all about.
Yeah.
And say, it's time to move on to that part of my life and use Bethany as kind of a jumping off point to do that.
Well, Denny, we've come to that part of the show. I mean, I want to thank you for stopping by and taking time out of your day to be with us. I really enjoyed it. The Don Alt story, I did not know that he was from Marshall, or that's where he had come from before he got to Bethany. Yeah. And I think a lot of people learned a lot of stuff, and there's more good things to come on the horizon here at our small college on the hill.
Well, I'm really looking forward to being at homecoming here in a few weeks and getting to be with you and a lot of other Bethanians, but present and past. So
absolutely, and it's great that we're all going to be able to be back in at home, as I like to put out. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Denny Williams, class of 1981. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. It's Dingo Talk. Follow us on Instagram. It's Dingo Talk. Or Dingo_Talk. Follow us on Twitter. That one's Dingo Talk. And follow us on TikTok. That is Dingo Talk as well. So as long as you type in Dingo Talk, you pretty much will find me talking to alumni like Denny. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you Thursday at 10 a.m. This has been the Alumni Tour, and have a good day, Chuckleheads.
Know by now. You wanna know by now. You wanna know by now. wanna know, you wanna know.